It's not really wrong to say that the final chapter of Attack on Titan was really divisive among the fandom. There are certain parts of the chapter which I liked, and there are certain parts of the chapter which I totally disliked. And as such, this is a subjective opinion on mine. You can totally have your differing opinions as such. But in spite of all of that, you cannot deny that this chapter actually had a lot of plot holes and unresolved plot threads that were left hanging in the middle for this chapter as well as for the series as a whole. Now I'm going to cover most of those plot holes in a separate video, but here in this particular video I just want to talk about the Hallucigenia because it was so heavily featured in chapter 138, the penultimate chapter of Attack on Titan, and here in chapter 139 it is simply gone. Poof, without a single trace, it's totally gone. So what exactly is going on here? We need to talk about this. So hello and welcome to Wonder WhyZ, my name is Soham and let's have a talk about the Hallucigenia, or the source of all living matter. But before that, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to our channel since I do weekly anime and manga related content along with a bunch of other stuff. With that being said, let's begin the video. Now before diving into chapter 139 itself and trying to decode what exactly happened to this Hallucigenia or source of all living matter, we first need to identify what is this thing all about, and in order to do so, we need to talk a little about its history. Now in reality, very little is known about this particular creature. The entire fandom called it Hallucigenia. I also called it Hallucigenia because of its resemblance to the real life creature called Hallucigenia, which is a Precambrian living entity that is supposed to be the progenitor of all living life. Now here, even though this particular Hallucigenia, the real life Hallucigenia, makes an appearance in Zeke Yeager's discussion of origin of life, we don't exactly know for sure if the source of all living matter is actually this particular Hallucigenia or not. But in spite of all of that, this particular thing has a direct link to Ymir Fritz, because when a young Ymir was being hunted down by King Fritz, she got heavily wounded and she vanished into the forest where she eventually discovered an abnormally large tree, and this tree was actually joined by this source of all living matter. Now this source of all living matter is mostly sedentary in nature, but it can go to great levels of physical activity whenever it is actually pressurized to do something like that. That has been the case a couple of times, especially when it made contact with Ymir Fritz, and it was this very entity which actually gave Ymir the powers of the Titans. Over the years, her story evolved and this entity was said to become the devil with whom Ymir had apparently made a pact. But we know the truth that this is not actually a devil or a demon, but rather this is the source of all living matter. But in spite of all of that, we do not know much about this entity, how did it originate, and what is exactly its true goal as such. Because after bonding with Ymir Fritz, it granted her the power of the founding titan, and subsequently enough, the 9 titan shifters were born out of all of this. Moreover, here we learn that this source of all living matter, or for short Hallucigenia, I'm just calling it Hallucigenia at this point, it can actually work according to the will of the founding titan, but it also has a mind of its own, and whenever it detects an anomaly, it reacts to it and it tries to help the wielder of the founding titan. That was shown to be the case twice in the Battle of Heaven and Earth, because at that moment, this particular thing materialized out of Eren Yeager's body in an attempt to reattach his severed head. The first time it was actually successful to do something like that, but the second time it was unable to do it, and as such it became even more agitated. It went out of the body of the founding titan and it assumed a centipede-like state and actively started attacking the armored titan because it didn't wanted the fall of the founding titan. And after that, we know for a fact that it used the smoke to convert every Eldian people into a titan. We know about all these things, they happened in chapter 138. But the problem starts with chapter 139 because apparently it's just not there anymore. It's poof, it's gone. Now here, after listing the history of this particular thing, I will try to give my interpretation of what exactly is happening here in chapter 139. But there's a somewhat big contradiction here which I'm going to talk about later on. But for now, I can assume for a fact that because Eren Yeager is down once and for all, basically the founding titan is down, the source of all living matter stopped working because it is directly linked to the founding titan. But even more than that, when Mikasa actually decapitated the head of Eren, she also actively stopped the curse of Ymir Fritz. Because for more than 2000 years, Ymir Fritz has been actively working for the royal family. She acted like a slave for them, even though apparently she actually loved King Fritz. Yeah, I know, that was a very bad plot point introduced in the final chapter. I know that people will say that this is classic Stockholm Syndrome, but even after all of that, I am really not convinced with this particular plot point, and I think it would have been better if this was not introduced at all. But in spite of all of this, because of the actions of Mikasa, Ymir Fritz's curse was finally broken, and now because the curse was actually broken, Ymir Fritz is finally free. And as a result of this, her bond with the source of all living matter finally disintegrates, and because of this reason, the Hallucigenia kind of vanishes in the middle of nowhere. The powers of the Titan are over, the alien people can no longer transform into the Titan, and this is the reason why we can say for sure that the source of all living detached itself from Ymir Fritz and also Eren Yeager himself. Thus, it probably went somewhere, I don't know where, and because of this, all the people who had transformed into the Titans returned back to their normal state once again. I know that this is not a very convincing theory as such, and it really looks like a plot hole in my opinion, but still this is the best explanation that can come out from the material that we have for chapter 139. I know that this entire thing was not explicitly stated here, but I think that this is actually the case which is happening with the Hallucigenia or source of all living matter in chapter 139. So there you have it. What are your thoughts about all of this? Please do mention them in the comment section below. So that's it for today guys, thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, share it with your friends and subscribe to the channel for more. Also, please do join the channel membership for some very cool perks and features. With that being said, this is Wonder WhyZ and I'll see you soon in the next video.